Ben here with Visual Dev FM. In today's video, I'm going to show you how you can build an upvote system using Webflow, and then either Zapier or Integromat, whichever is the tool of your choice. There's a conversation on Twitter about starting an award site similar to, awards or the Webbies for no-code tools. So I quickly, threw together this site, just designed a homepage, and then I designed a product page where people could vote. Of course, there'd be a panel weighing in, and there'd be many more pages that were involved in this, but just quickly, those two pieces. And if I come to this page, you can see I have 3 items with a similar number of votes and the same number of votes. And if I click on one of the vote buttons, then that item jumps up, gets 129 votes, collection reorders. This is all done just using Webflow and Zapier. So how do we do this? First, let's talk about the concepts. So in here in Webflow, I'll just go over my collection real quick. In my collection, I have all these different fields, but this one's really important, votes, because that keeps the number of votes a product has. And then an item ID. We've talked about this a lot. You have to have the item ID in Webflow. It's not there by default. You have to place it in there in order to be able to have workflows like this. So, you can see if you open up this right here, you'll see I've got votes. I even have this big, message to people who might be editing. Do not edit this. It's being modified. Item ID, do not edit. How do we get the item IDs? Well, I made a video that shows you how to use Postman to do that. Matthew Munger made a great video the other day about how to use Integromat to get all of the item IDs for all the products that you have and place it back in without you really having to do any work, except that one initial setup, which is really, really, really awesome. If you go to your products template page or whatever your collection item is, and you select an item, you'll see up here there's this really long URL, but at the last it says and item ID equals, and that's the item ID. You could copy and paste it from there and put it in your collection. So there's a bunch of different ways to do this, but you're going to need that, okay? So that's the first part. The second part is, this is just a form. So I have a form. I called it Vote Success, but I removed all the fields. I have an HTML embed here. And as I've shown in other videos, this is not anything new. I, type out my input, and then I'm using the dynamic fields here to pass through the name and the item ID, which I'm going to need to work with this. And once I've got that, I change my success state of my form as well. So that when it goes to success, it's the same size, similar, and I've got a little loading GIF. And then I'm using the same code as always, which I'll include in this video, that refreshes the form after 3 seconds, or refreshes the page after 3 seconds when somebody submits a form. Then I've got an image here, a little triangle, the caret that shows people that they're supposed to vote. I'm getting this from the number of votes, the number. So I've got kind of, a nice little collection working here. Okay. So when I started working through this originally, this was, I built this originally, this functionality, gosh, it was over a year and a half ago, with the help of Bart from Webflow. So thank you, Bart, who originally helped me unlock this functionality. But essentially, what I wanted to do was okay, so I'll have this collection and I'll have a vote button. And then to pass through the right number, what I'll do is in the HTML embed here, I'll just write some JavaScript, and really basic JavaScript where I input the number of votes and I add 1 to it, and then I pass that through to a input so that's hidden, so that when people vote, they get the value plus 1. Well, the problem with that was, what if I loaded this page and then walked away for an hour or was working for 4 hours and then I came back to it and was like, oh, I want to vote. The number would be what it was 4 hours ago, not what it currently is. So there could have been 100 people who voted, and by voting, I would wipe out those 100 votes. And so then I had this thing where, okay, what I'll do is I'll click on this button, and it's going to take me to the product detail page, the collection template page. And on there, all I'm going to have is one design. There won't be any content. There's a form hidden, and I'll use some code again to submit a form on page load, and then redirect back to the page I came from. So it would go to the page. There'd be like a little animation, like something was happening. It would come back to this page, and using the same form technique, that number was added, but that just didn't feel right. So here's what I landed on. What I've got is I've got form submission, which we're used to. But then I'm using the webhook tool by Zapier, and I'm using get. So where I got this from was if you go to the Webflow developer site and you go to items and get a single item, which is what I want to do, you can copy this right here. This is the address that you'll use here, except you'll just have to work in and out of a couple of different things. You'll need this collection ID. So, when we go to the product detail page, you can see that my collection ID, that's my page ID. This is my item ID. So to get the collection ID, you'd have to use Postman. I've got a separate video on that. But essentially, you'd put your collection ID here, and then we'll use Zapier in the form submission to get this item ID. So essentially what I've got here is I've got customize this. Here's my call. This is the ID of my collection. And here is the ID for my item that came through in this form submit. So if you remember here in our products page, right here in this form, we have the item ID being passed through. So all I'm doing is I'm taking that and passing it through here, and we're saying I want that item. Okay. So at the bottom, you have to add a couple of things in the header. You have to add accept dash version. The value would be 1.0.0, and then you'd have to add. Also, you can see that here. So, and then you'd have to add authorization, and then you just in the next box put bearer and the API token for your site that you get in the site settings. So you would add those in, and then it's going to get that one item for you. Then what I was doing, this is where we actually do some work here. So what I'm doing is I'm getting the votes. So I'm passing the votes. With this step, I'm getting how many votes are currently in this item. So it's a submission for that specific item people are voting for. Here, I'm getting how many votes that they currently have. And in this step, I'm taking that number of votes, and then I'm adding one. So I'm using the formatter tool from Zapier. I'm using numbers and a math operation. You can choose add. So I pass through the value that's there. I'm adding one to it. And then I'm just updating this item. So, I'm going through, you have to pass the item ID through, which we have that. I'm passing through the total number now once this number's been added, and then the name, and then it updates the item in real time. So it's all really quick. Typically happens in under 3 seconds. So people hit that button, page refreshes, boom, that number has been added, and this is all done with just Zapier. So, like I said, form submission, we're getting that item that was submitted to, through the form, and we are grabbing the current number of votes and adding one to it, and then placing it back in. So, boom, that's the basics of how we do that with Zapier. Okay. So, that, and then in Webflow, what I'm doing in my collection list is I am sorting this, the order of this list from largest to smallest, so that we can see whatever has the most amount of votes to whatever has the least amount of votes. So that way, there's a natural order to it. Now, in Integromat, this is a little different. So I'm actually going to delete these modules. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to go Webflow, watch events, and then it will put in a webhook for you. But okay, so now I have this, right? And this, what I'm going to do is I'm going to run it once, and it's going to look for form submissions. Integromat's a little different, so what I'll do back over here is I'll just vote for this top one. We're at 550 votes right now. So, and then what I want to do is I'm actually going to come here and turn this off. Okay, so Zapier is not working. Okay, and then so now I have sample data here. This form has been submitted. So then what I want to do is I want to go here and I want to get an item. So you want to get that manually, and so we'll need the collection ID again. I'm going to jump back over here to this Zap, and I'm going to customize my get, grab my collection ID just real quick. And like I said, I've got some videos that shows you how you can get this. But I'm going to paste that in, and then the item ID is going to come from this form submission. So we're saying get this item. Okay, so we can run this once. Let's process the existing data that's here. Oh, and we had an error. What was it? Cannot access resource. So maybe we change some things here. Let's republish the site. And then let's just double check and make sure we got everything right. Collection ID. Oh, I didn't select the right site. Should be no codies. There we go. Okay, so let's run this once more. Process the existing. Boom. Okay, so now you can see we get the one item that was there. This is the item that I voted for. Perfect. And then what we want to do is we want to now use Webflow, and we want to update an item. Okay, and so we'll jump in here and we'll choose our site, and it's going to load. And so we'll say no codies, and then collection products. And so we can go through here. Item, we're going to map. So it's whatever the item ID is of this one we're getting here. I'm going to pass in this image URL because if you have a main image URL for some reason with Integromat, it won't pass this through without providing that. So I can just grab that. Votes. So this is where it gets really cool. So with votes, what I want to do is I want to do this. I want to use a formula. So if you up here in Integromat, they have these different tabs. I'm going to use sum. And so in here, I'm going to go back in here and I'm going to say, number of votes. And then I'm going to use semicolon and I'm going to put 1. So this is going to add those together, the number of votes plus 1. I'm going to pass in, I don't need to pass in the item ID there because I've already passed it in up here. This is just for us. Then we'll pass through the name. So what we want to pass through is the name of the product. You're probably yelling at me. It's right there. I know. I'm sorry. So if I hit OK, so now if I run this once, process existing, it gets the item, it finds the item, it adds that vote together. So we can actually, we can turn this on. So run immediately as soon as it rolls. And so now if we go back over here, so if we vote for something, 456 votes. $458 votes. You see it's processing. It took a second there. So 438 votes. So now we're upvoting. Now we're using Integromat to do it instead of Zapier. So you can use either or. Now, the one thing you might be saying, this is all great, but this is a high-level overview. So I just wanted to give you that. You might be saying, but somebody can vote as many times as they want. This is true. So one thing that you can do is you can actually take this form and you could set, take the form here and you could set an ID to it. And then you could use some really simple JavaScript to set a cookie when people click on the vote button for that specific item. And then once that cookie is set, you could then hide the vote button from them. So, they could clear their cookies and vote again, or vote for multiple browsers, or vote for multiple devices, which is okay. But it would cut down the amount of people trying to game the system there, and then that doesn't show anymore. And you could actually just show like a grayed out version of the same thing that looks similar, but it just says voted, and then they'll know they voted for it. And they can't vote again unless they clear that cookie, which is, really cool, a cool way to approach this. So just wanted to show you how you could accomplish this using Webflow and either Zapier or Integromat, whichever your tool of choice is. Hopefully this video really helped, and hopefully this is something that will help you kind of implement what you were looking to do. Now, another cool thing that you could do with this, you can we don't want to just stick to upvotes, but if you've seen Medium, if you go to Medium site and they've got these little claps around their page where you can like clap for an article. Let's see if we can, medium.com. I just need to find CRUD, create a CRUD application, Express.js. This is cool. Okay. I can clap for this. It's already got 1.7 thousand claps, but you can just click there and it's +1, right? So you can do this same sort of thing, especially with Lottie. Get a cool animation, submit the form, and then you could actually list your blog articles based on the amount of times people have clapped, and you could even let them clap as many times as they want. You know, like they want to clap 20 times now. It probably may not be as quick as this, but with the Lottie animation, you could hold them back from clicking over and over and over again. And you wouldn't need anything super fancy. Once again, it's just Webflow and either Integromat or Zapier, and you could have that going. So, you know, there are all kinds of use cases for you if you get this working, and you can, you know, I can't imagine, because I know that just the use cases I know are probably, you know, pale in comparison of all the things you guys are probably thinking about. But just wanted to let you know that this was available. Hopefully this video really helped you grasp this concept, and it's going to help you in your work with Webflow and with no-code tools. If you have any questions, feel free to reach out. I'll do the best I can to help you, and I hope you guys have a great day.